Hi, class. And we have some work that Stephen's going to show us. He's working a lot with Type on Screen, and these are really exciting projects. Want you to show us what
Great.
you're working on.
Sure, thanks. As I mentioned earlier on, I went to a grad program for type design, and my thesis was in the second half of that. This is my thesis project, which has since been commissioned for release by Google Fonts. It's a variable font that tries to embrace and explore what can be done creatively with variable fonts. So this is the website recursive.design. It's not quite publicly available, but there are betas available if people want to try it out. So this kind of shows, the design space. You can click and drag around here and see this, what we call the Nord's-eye cube of axes. And then if you scroll down, you can read about the font. This kind of shows what's interesting about a variable font. Whereas typical digital fonts would be in many different static files, and they're only like a fixed outline for each file. A variable font allows you to do things like changing the font weight just fluidly, and you can have something in this particular font all the way from weight 300 to weight 1000, very light to very bold.
And here you can see the CSS style,
Yeah,
code,
we've
right?
formatted this as one way to show how you can handle a variable font in CSS. Actually, the font itself is inspired by sign painting, but put into a context that I think is ideal for code and UI design. So that's kind of why we wanted to format this type tester like you're editing the actual CSS, because actually you are.
So it's actually really easy to put into your CSS.
Yes, it's quite easy.
Paste it in there.
Some of these things can be, in fact, most of them are recommended to use traditional CSS properties like font weight. You can assign directly with font weight, say 700 or 733 or whatever. Some of these others are called custom axes. And so like monospace is a custom axis here, where the letters change from a proportional font, which is kind of what we're used to reading, where letters have their natural width, to a monospace font, where every letter has the same width. So, if you watch something like the I or the M, you'll see in the proportional default style, those are natural widths. The M is kind of wide, the I is kind of narrow, but in the mono style, all of these are rigidly the same.
Exact same space.
And that's because in code
everything lines up.
Exactly, yeah. In code like this, it's really nice when things line up in a nice column. So this is a perfect example just right here. It's nice that all of these aren't separately long
shifting
things. Yeah, it makes it easier to think about.
And then data tables.
Yeah, exactly. If you're making a financial report, it can also be nice to use a monospace font. It does other little detail things like the punctuation is often a lot larger in a monospace font, because it's very important to have a clear understanding of where the commas or semicolons are in small text. So this is the type tester. You can also type whatever you want to in here and then play with it as you wish to. So yeah, the rest of the website just kind of gives examples of here's areas where I think this font is useful. So apps, documentation online or websites, or in your personal coding environment. And then it kind of goes on to describe, the differences between a monospace and a proportional font. It gives an example of here's something that I think is interesting for web design. This font keeps the same width, even in the proportional styles, it keeps the same width for every letter across different aspects. So for instance, you can smoothly animate the weight or even the slant of letters
without jumping,
without making anything jump.
Pushing things away.
A typical sans serif font, if you were to make a bold, it kind of breaks the menu or the link that you're trying to hover over. So you're limited to just color changes in traditional fonts. And that's, it's not going to be in every variable font. Something worth knowing is that each variable font is kind of its own little system, and there are standards. Yeah, there are standards as far as, weight 400 is a regular and should be approximately the same level of weight on each page,
Mhm.
and in each font. 700 is a bold, but then like there's quite a bit of other creative aspects to making a variable font that people can engage with. So yeah, I think this is a fun resource for like people
Oh,
who
this
are
shows the axes.
exactly.
Right.
This
Mhm.
shows like in the casual style, it's like a construction based on sign painting and brushes, and the construction of the letter in every letter of the font actually kind of has these different aspects. So this like linear side, the default is more of a rationalized standard typographic approach to letters, and then this is more of a kind of fun-looking, warm, inviting tone.
Yeah.
So yeah, this kind of shows like how the different weights and expressions work, and
Yeah.
how letters are designed actually to not have any sort of jumps in construction between different styles. So some fonts, the dollar sign has the middle bar which disappears when it gets too bold,
Mhm.
but in this font it remains there in kind of the same sign paintery style. Yeah.
Oh, very large project.
Yeah, it's
very
quite a
deep.
bit. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
64
amazing.
static instances are part of this font, and
Yeah.
it has a quite large character set, so you can
No tofus.
well there's plenty of things it won't cover. It doesn't have Cyrillic or Greek
Yeah,
or
sure.
Arabic or any number of languages, but for a huge amount of Latin-based scripts, this font will work. So from Kazakhstan to Azerbaijan, I think, to Spain, this font will work. So, yeah, thanks for looking
So
at it.
yeah,
There's more to see here, of
thank
course.
you for
but,
showing us. This is really
definitely.
exciting. Haven't seen something so deep and well researched.
Sure.
Great.
Well, thanks very much.
Thank
yeah, it's
you.
been a fun project to work on.
Yeah.